Where do the Pacers stand after a week of the offseason? What do we make of their moves? Derek Schultz, you've heard him at Query and Schultz, and at the IBJ is going to join me to break down the Pacers offseason to date on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend and maybe a long weekend. And welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes. And today, happy Monday. Huff trade official, Cam Jones trade official, Pacers offseason stuff is happening. It's a week in. What do we make of it? Kind of quiet, not a lot of big stuff happening, obviously, besides Myles Turner leaving. Well, Derek Schultz from the IBJ and Query and Schultz is going to join me today to break it all down. We get into our thoughts on Turner's departure, including he has not signed with the Bucks yet officially. The spoiler answer on that is the Bucks currently don't have the cap space, but I discussed a little bit of that. We also talk about Cam Jones, Taylor Peter, Huff, and everything that the Pacers have done so far, where they could be headed, what this all means for a gap year, and so much more. Derek's the best. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's just get right to it. Two pro yappers added again for their every 6-month meetup to talk about the Pacers. Derek Schultz, who you hear all the time on Query and Schultz and read in the IBJ, is here to tell you about everything you need to know about this offseason, because I have been talking too much to myself, to my camera. The Pacers moratorium is over. Cam Jones is on their team. Myles Turner still hasn't happened yet. I actually want to talk about that a little bit at some point later in the show. But Derek's favorite, how are you?
I'm doing great. You know, I was thinking of taking a gap year from Locked On Pacers, but thank you for calling me instead just a couple of months later. So that's nice that I don't have to sit out a year.
That hits hard. That I might make that joke all season in some sort of varying capacities, because I'll have lots of time to do that sort of thing. Maybe I'll wear floaties for my August podcast, pretend I'm on vacation the whole time, something to that effect. We're all going to take some time away from what might be a very strange season for the Indiana Pacers after stuff that happened in the finals, after stuff that's happened to them this offseason. They do officially have Huff. That trade went through. They do officially have Cam Jones. We talked to him at Summer League practice on Sunday. That's all interesting and exciting and future forward thinking and all that. And that's great. But Myles Turner leaving is the biggest thing. And I've talked a million times about my opinions on this, and we'll see what this might get spun into. Before we talk about that, though, I have two questions for you. But the first one is the big one. What are your thoughts on this departure, what it means for the Pacers, and how they should address their center position going forward?
Yeah, just like anybody else, I was very surprised with how it all went down, and not surprised in the sense that Myles Turner took an offer that he thought was better for him, but I was surprised that basically the Bucks decided to take out another mortgage on their house for Myles Turner. You know, no offense to Myles Turner, he's a really good player, but I thought what the Bucks did, if the Pacers had done that exact same thing, and even if they had a player as transcendent as Giannis is, no offense to Haliburton, but Giannis is Giannis, right? I still would think that was a reckless and crazy move that they made. So I'll be fascinated to see how that plays out as far as Milwaukee is concerned. But I think in a way, Tony, sometimes when you deal with something from a position of strength and you think to yourself, hey, man, Brooklyn and Detroit are doing this. You got nothing else. You're coming here, right? Here's the deal. This is what we're offering you, and you're going to take it. Sometimes you kind of get caught with your pants down, and I think that's what happened here. And that's not to say that the Pacers didn't handle it properly. I think they thought, and we all thought, that they were dealing from a position of strength. But then when Milwaukee made the move that they did and they came swooping in, there was nothing that the Pacers could do about that. I do think, and I'll be interested to hear, kind of as this plays out and comments in the future, because I'm sure Turner will be asked to reflect on his time in Indiana and all that. I do wonder if Myles Turner and the Pacers had a very interesting, to say the least, relationship over the 10 years where they were on the outs, they were back in, they were on the outs, they were back in, they were on the outs. You know what I mean? It was different. It wasn't really a marriage. It was more like, we're still dating, we're kind of hanging out, we're seeing how things go. It's kind of like in your late 20s when you're in those relationships and neither of you really want to get married, but you still hey, you like hanging out and, he's hot, she's hot, whatever else. Like, you have a connection. I just made the worst analogy ever in Locked On Pacers history, but that's how I've always felt about the Pacers, where it never felt like it was all the way in on either side. And I do wonder if there's an aspect of this that we're underrating, that maybe Myles Turner just thought, you know what, like 10 years, man, we were close, and I get to walk out and leave them better than I found them. It's time for me to move on. It's time for them to, I think there is that aspect that plays into this as well. It's a two-way street. It's not just the Pacers not deciding to offer more money to Myles Turner. It's also Turner taking another deal. Right. So I think we focus so much on, oh my God, what are the Pacers doing? And how do they mishandle this? And you're not thinking to yourself, well, maybe Turner just kind of wanted to do this. Maybe that was who knows? Maybe that was the plan all along, that there was another offer that was going to come in and he was going to end up taking it. So, surprised, shocked, and all of that. And I do think that it's a bigger void than people realize. But all of that said, I don't think that it's some like unrecoverable type deal for the Pacers, especially with this Haliburton injury. I think that really changes. I'd be down way worse about it had Tyrese Haliburton been healthy right now, and then you let Turner walk out the door for nothing going into 25-26.
Yeah, the Haliburton injury is part of it. And like, if they won game 7, he's not leaving, right? Like, if you win the finals, you go back. So you just got to something that I said like late last week that I don't have a good way of putting it, but just the way that this has all been reported, the way there was no spots for him, all the way that this came together, like, it's certainly possible that just he took the most money, but I just keep feeling like there's something I'm missing in this whole thing. Like, would he have not come back to the Pacers and asked them for the same offer if he really wanted to be back? Or if they didn't meet it, then I have questions about that. Because even if I think Myles Turner stinks and I'm like, this finals was so bad, he has to be off the team, it's bad asset management to lose starters for nothing in return, especially when it's clear that other teams value him on that contract that they're willing to offer. And so I keep thinking there's something I'm missing. And the something could be that the Pacers offers are lower than are being reported, or shorter in years, or had non-guaranteed money. Or it could be what you just said. And I said this last week. It could be that the answer is Myles Turner maybe didn't want to be back as much as was reported, or the way free agency started with negotiations made him more willing to not want to be back. And he's the only one who could answer that. We'll talk to Kevin Pritchard on Monday. I don't know what day of the week it is because of the long weekend. So maybe we'll get some more answers there. But I keep thinking like I'm missing something. Like, they gave up a second and a swap for J Huff. Hi, just stand with me for a second. Like, pretend the tax was some immovable barrier. Would you rather have Myles Turner and use those assets to get off of someone else, or trade those things for J Huff and lose Myles Turner? You obviously would go with option A if you could have Myles Turner on your team. Like, there's all these just like little things that I'm like, there's just something I don't know. And in the way these negotiations go, no one will ever tell you what that is. And that's fine. They shouldn't, because it's such sensitive information, and like, no one wants to be embarrassed or anything like that. I get it. But I think you're right that maybe it's that. I'm not saying it's that. I don't know that. I'm totally speculating. But I wonder what that was and how it got to this point. And the other answer could just be, surprise, no one saw the Bucks having cap space at all. And we'll get to that in a second. But the other part of this is fascinating. And the hard part of sports fandom for many people is like, for me, I was not even 21 yet. Turner got drafted by the Pacers. Like, you and I were running through this. Like, that dude's through line obviously has a lot of stars with the Pacers. It obviously is also like Ty Lawson to Bennedict Mathurin. Like, it's crazy what he has seen with one franchise. And like, that is unheard of in the modern era. And I think that even beyond any sort of talent or asset loss, like, I like that part of sports. Like, I think that part of what made the Warriors dynasty so fascinating to me is not only were they awesome and good, but Warriors fans got to see Steph and Draymond and Clay just like grow up as adults on a championship team. And I think that would have been something for Myles. And I think that part of, look, Tyrese might be here for a while, who knows, but like, that part of the growth of this team is now lost. And that's a little sad.
Yeah, it's sad. And it's frankly sort of surreal to think that, you're going to come in there in October and he's not going to be there. Because he's just been such a constant in what's been a constantly changing landscape for the Pacers. I mean, you and I were joking about this off the air, Tony. Pacers have remade themselves basically 3 times over in the 10 years that Myles Turner has been here, and he's been the one constant. I guess you can include this name if you want to, but he's a kicker, so I'm hesitant to do so. The only athlete since I've been here in the 21st century in Indianapolis that I think went through kind of more changes and turmoil and whatever else or as many would be like somebody like Adam Vinatieri with the Colts. I certainly can't think of a Pacer that has, because, usually there were hard cutoffs in eras when it came to that. But, 10 years and it might as well have been 80 for all the things the Pacers went through along that time. And, I always appreciated Myles came here at 19, and he was always just a really mature, deep thinking guy. And took himself seriously and all of that. Like, there was never, while obviously there was a learning curve as a player, to me, there was never really a learning curve as a person. Like, immediately he was 19 going on 29. Like, it felt like he got it in a sense when it came to being a professional and all of that. Now, look, I know that he stuck his foot in his mouth sometimes with things that he said over the years and things like that. And that goes back to what we talked about with him and the Pacers. And they were, it wasn't always the best marriage on either side. But at the same time, it's really hard to picture the Pacers without him, because the last time they were without him, you've got to go all the way back to the Roy Hibbert, David West, George Hill years, which feel like, Luis Scola, you know what I mean? It feels like forever ago that those teams were around, and that's how long he's been here. And I do think, obviously they'll miss his skill on the floor. The Pacers have, made the best of the situation here. Jay Huff is a contract that you want, right? I mean, that's an easy contract to absorb. I saw a tweet the other day. He's 80% Myles Turner. That's drastically overstating it, I think. But he brings some.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't going to talk about that today. I'm sorry. I'm cutting you off. What is happening? I think Jay Huff's a decently good player. Was there a different Myles Turner than the one that was on the team the last 10 years?
It's Cope.
What is happening?
It's part Cope and it's part recency bias, because look, he was bad in the finals, right? He was bad. He was great against Cleveland. He was great against New York. You know what I mean? They wouldn't be in that position without him. I was as frustrated as anybody else that Turner was bad in the finals, but we can't just flush the first 6.5, 7 months of the season because he had a bad 2 weeks against Oklahoma City, or the previous 10 years that we've just been talking about. So yeah, hey, James Wiseman was drafted second 5 years ago. Okay, great. Okay. I just think, some fans, they just, part of moving on, this has always been an Indiana thing. You don't want to be here, fine. The next girl is going to be even better, whatever. She goes to a different school and I'm taking her to the dance. That has always been an Indiana thing. And it's just, anytime you wrong the fans here, remember Jacoby Brissett? No offense, Jacoby Brissett is a really nice guy. I mean, I remember people being like, he's even better than Andrew Luck. What? What are we doing, guys? You're crazy. If you ever thought that, you're crazy. And so, I think, obviously, Jay Huff to Turner is more of a gap probably than even that. But that's what we do in this town. When you're wronged and you're hurt and you're brokenhearted about it, this is the way to cope. You get defensive about it. And then suddenly Jay Huff, who is a guy that 80% of the fan base probably had never heard of until a week ago, now becomes the next thing. And then, we hear about Wiseman's potential and, hey, I've always really liked Isaiah Jackson. Oh yeah, really? Okay. I can do a search on your tweets. I don't see a single Ijax tweet anywhere in here, but okay, fine. And that's just kind of where the fans are with it.
And a lot of people will be upset about what you said, but I do think there's an element of, these guys will be fine at starting center who have never been a starting center before ever in the NBA.
And they're coming off Achilles, both of them, So I really like Isaiah Jackson. I do. And when he's been on the floor, he's been a good player, and we've seen growth from him and all of that. So look, I don't think that there is zero chance that Jackson, or hell, even Wiseman, even though I'm kind of out on Wiseman, or even Jay Huff can be a competent level starting player in the NBA. I just think that with where we sit today, adding everything up, that's not a bet that I would feel comfortable making. That's all I'm saying.
Rotation quality for sure. I'm going to end this rant and use, thank you, Cam, for tweeting this earlier. One of the best. Everybody, quick break here so we can talk about FanDuel Summer Sports. They're in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, high-stakes soccer action, whatever it is, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Many people have been using FanDuel to track their favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use. It's fast payouts. It makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you are a part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, I'm going to rant. So, per 36 stats have a use. Their use that people usually use them for is very bad. I've seen a lot of, look at Jay Huff and Myles Turner's per 36 side by side. Here's every Pacers available option. Yeah, okay. Here's what Cam tweeted that I will now use. And everybody, listen up. Hakeem Olajuwon career per 36, 21.9 points, 11.2 rebounds. He shot 51.2%. Enes Kanter career per 36, 18.7 points, 13.0 rebounds, 54.8% from the field. These stats, get it to per minute. Like, I get what the thought of that is. If you could do it for more minutes, you would. Your coach would let you do it. You can't. That's why you play so little. And then everyone's like, well, look at their stats in games they play this much. Yeah, they're playing more because they're playing well that night. Like, they don't do that every night or they would play more. Mm-hmm. Don't use stats like that. That's not how that works. That's not the point. There is a good reason to get everybody's stats on like a per time limit basis. That is not it. Jay Huff is going to be in the rotation next year. He's a decent player. Thank you, Cam, for that crazy stuff. Myles Turner, David West, and Ike Jogu have the same career per 36 stats. What are we doing?
Oh my God, Ike! Yeah, the crown jewel.
Him and Myles have like identical per 36. Like it's crazy. Okay, I'm sorry.
Plus minus is that for me. I think people really misuse plus minus. And yeah, I can understand your rant about per 36. So,
dude, it's like obvious if a guy played well and impacted his own plus minus, or if he just happened to be on the floor when like good stuff happened. Yeah. Like, okay. The other thing people have asked me about, so I will do this really quick. Cap nonsense. Myles has not signed with the Bucks yet. I have the Bucks Twitter notifications on like a psychopath. So they did do the Pat Connaughton trade. And Brook Lopez did leave. He has already signed with the Clippers. So there was a lot of like funky sign and trade stuff people were asking about with like, oh, could this be an over the cap trade? Probably not anymore because of that stuff. But what I mentioned last week that is still technically on the table is, could the Pacers trade him just straight up into the cap space of the Bucks and get a trade exception for it? That's still technically possible and legal. I think the Pacers would have to include something to encourage the Bucks to do that. It would help the Pacers quite a bit. It would also give the Bucks an asset. So like that's why it would happen. I think the Bucks would be doing the bigger favor because they're also getting Myles Turner either way. We'll see if that actually happens. Yes, that's still possible. The fact that it hasn't happened yet doesn't really mean anything to me because they still have to waive and stretch Dame, and they haven't done that, and that's going to be like a big thing. You got to do a little show for that. You're waiving a top 75 player of all time. So good luck just doing that. However, that is where that is. I don't know anything, obviously, but that is my suspicion is that it will probably just be a signing, but a sign and trade is still technically possible. And I think the Pacers have to include something to make that happen. All right, Derek, let's talk about other things that have happened. We've made fun of Jay Huff's stats, which is not fair because he is good. There's a reason they traded for him. I don't think that's a bad trade at that value. Do you have any opinion of him beyond watching him and Kyle Guy win a national championship? What do you think he can add to the Pacers?
Yeah, I know very little about him outside of, him kind of somewhat, I guess, bursting onto the scene, if you want to say that, when he got out of the G League and got some real NBA time last season with Memphis, because, obviously before then he had kind of bounced around, and I know that he had been a really productive player in the G League, but I did watch a little bit more Memphis this year. Don't be mad at me, but they have another center on Memphis that I am personally invested in. And so I was watching him. So I watched a little more Grizzlies basketball as far as this year. And look, I don't think he's 80% Myles Turner.
Thank you.
But he can, he looks like a productive basketball player that's ready for a bigger role. And bigger role doesn't necessarily mean starter. Bigger role, I think, means, okay, like, let's see if this is sustainable, what you did for whatever it was, 50, 60 games in Memphis, and being a 9-10 per minute guy, can you be a 15, 16, 17 minute per guy, 20 minute guy, and just kind of go from there. And I'm sure he's looking at this opportunity as an opportunity of a lifetime, right? Because you got to be thinking, whether you're him, whether you're Ijax, or anybody else, hey, this is wide open. I can write down the minutes that I want. As long as I'm good, then they're going to play me because they don't have a lot of other options there. So I do think the Pacers made some chicken salad out of chicken, when it comes to this situation here by getting a guy not only a guy that can be productive like Huff, but at his contract. Yeah. I think is the other thing that is big because, the Pacers have to do some finagling there when it comes to the money. And so it seemed like a deal that was a no-brainer. And I do think, last week we were having this conversation, Tony, I'm sure you got this as well, that they're fine. They're fine. They've got their bigs. They're good. You know what I mean? It's going to be Wiseman. It's going to be Jackson. They're fine. And I'm like, no, they're not fine. They need to add somebody else. So this at least takes care of that.
Yeah, you need, even if I like Isaiah Jackson, I think he's good. I think they should try to keep him. He's coming off an Achilles tear. I have no idea how good he's going to be next year, right?
Yep.
No one does. I've seen him move. He looks fine. You don't know. Same with Wiseman, right? Is Tony Bradley and Thomas Bryant really a sick center rotation with Jay Huff? No. You have to have something, a bite of the apple at something. And yeah, I think that with Jay Huff, the swap is for making the Grizzlies give up a decent player, and the pick itself is for if this is a rotation player on that contract, holy cow, that's a steal. And so we don't know that yet, but I think there are signs that he could be. And the other part that makes him a tradable guy specifically for the Pacers, because the Grizzlies immediately signed Jock Landale, which was very interesting to me. They preferred Jock Landale and also got other stuff, or they preferred Jock Landale and those assets instead of having Jay Huff. Could the Pacers have wanted Jock Landale instead? The thinking for the Pacers is Jay Huff fits way better with how the Pacers play, right? Guys that can make decisions with the ball, shoot it. I can't even use the sneaky athletic term. Jay Huff is actual athletic for someone of his heights too. He actually does a lot. Yeah. So the fit and mobility stuff, because their bigs typically need to be able to run and shoot a little bit. That's what made Tony Bradley being so useful in the final surprising. He's a good player, but he's not very Pacers-y in terms of that stuff. Thomas Bryant was, obviously Myles was. Isaiah has the athleticism, not the shooting. That is where I think he can. Why they were so willing to get him is that he fits well with that contract too, and so they can be comfortable whatever role he's in, being great, go do whatever Jay Huff thing is. We believe that this will fit fine. And so I think that's a good gamble for them. And I get why the Grizzlies have their preference of Landale and why the Pacers had their preference of let's trade away this stuff to get him.
Yeah, I think it's best for both parties, really. And you needed to get somebody else in here besides the ones that we mentioned there with Bradley and Wiseman.
We're not even on the team. That's the other hard part. Who knows if Bradley's technically under contract? It's non-guaranteed. We have no idea who the rest of the Pacers center rotation is going to be. They could trade for other guys. They maybe should trade for other guys, but I don't need to opine more on the center situation. We've all done that a million times. Do you have any major thoughts on Taylen Peter and or Cam Jones?
Cam Jones, I loved watching. Well, I hated watching play, I guess, in certain games this past season. He really lit up Purdue. That game was a total nightmare up in Milwaukee. It was their first non-conference loss in 4 years, and Cam Jones was the big reason why. But the dude is just an absolute bulldog, and he fits really, I think, what the Pacers normally have seemed to like over the years, more often than not, the very highly productive college player. He was an outstanding player at Marquette and a combo guard and could kind of do everything. And anything that he was asked to do, they're like, hey, we need you to facilitate more. Bang. He's 6-7 assists a game. And, he can kind of do all of that. I am interested though that, and maybe, I don't know, maybe they feel like Cam Jones especially can be a rotational player right away. I don't know. These weren't two guys, they're, even Taylen Peter is old. You know what I mean? Yeah, as far as prospects, these aren't guys that you're like, yeah, let's take a look and do a two-way or whatever, and then take a look in 2 or 3 years and see where they're at. These guys seemingly are lower ceiling, I guess, at least just based on their age. So I thought that was a little bit interesting that was the approach that they decided to take. But I don't know, they might be feeling like Cam Jones especially can factor in somehow to that point guard rotation, because I still would think that they're thinking about wanting to add somebody else to that mix, kind of like what they just did with Huff in the center rotation.
So I thought for a second that them drafting two older guys was a sign that they were like, we need cheap potential contributors now because we might be close to or in the tax this year, and now they might not be because Myles Turner's not going to be on their team. So that was somewhat revealing. The thing with Cam Jones is, like, one, watching him play, I'm like, immediately obvious why this is a draftable prospect. Like, can do a lot of stuff. Shaka Smart does NBA stuff. Great, I get it. Like, less transitional for him from past to present NBA. He also, if they want him to be the third string point guard, I guess I wouldn't think so right away. Maybe later in the season. So they will get to point guards. They should probably sign a vet there. But he played off ball the first 3 years there, like when they had Kolek and other guys. So I think they'd be comfortable with him not necessarily being on the ball all the time right away. I think early, especially in summer league, he should have the ball a lot. But like, that's a good development track to be on. He was drilling shots at summer league practice today. It's summer league practice, but I've seen guys miss shots in that setting. It's their first time in an NBA gym, whatever. He was like, his shot looks a little funky. I can't tell if it's because there's a little hitch or because he's a lefty, and I just think every lefty shooter looks like they're uncomfortable, and I just need to mirror my screen. But they went in, and who cares what I think they look like? If they go in the basket, that's great. It's fun to chat with him. So I get the bet there, and I agree with you. He's older. That's somewhat revealing. It was funny to talk to Johnny Furphy because he's fighting these emotions of like, I'm not the rookie anymore. Oh, the guys I'm mentoring are 3 years older than me. Interesting.
Yeah, it's got to be weird.
Yeah, so he's got to kind of fight through that. Like, he's still 20. Taylor Peter is such like a, I don't know what contract he'll be on or how this will work. Like, he might not ever be anything. It's such a Pacers-y pick, not even because of the skills he has. They just, late in these drafts and these undrafted times, love the analytics pick, man. Alize Johnson, scoop up Terry Taylor, grab Taylor Peter, whatever you think of Enrique Freeman. He was older. Maybe he was kind of an analytics pick. He was really productive. Like, they love that analytics pick with their late stuff. It fits in line with what they've had. They've had some success with those guys, some question marks. You just never know. But like, that's what the gamble's all about. You tell me that true shooting percentage is on the table. I'm like, yeah, okay, I understand. So if you have any grand, huge take on the 54th pick, like, you're lying. Like, I watched one full Liberty game in my life, but you know what? I get the gamble. So that makes a ton of sense to me. Okay, you mentioned point guard. That gets me to my last question. Center feels incomplete. Beyond that, is there anything you feel like they still need to address this offseason?
Yeah, I think what they're going to do at point guard. Now, if they feel like Cam Jones can be that guy right away, I wouldn't think that they felt that, but he, like you said, he's versatile and he can pretty much fit any role that you have for them. Obviously some of the stuff from college is going to have to translate to the pros, and there's going to be a learning curve there. But I would think that you would want somebody else in that group, and maybe it's a veteran. Gasp. Oh my God. No, a veteran. Wait, we can't do that during a gap year. It's got to be some, 20-year-old or whatever. But
I can't, people are like, it has to be, I'm like, couldn't it be a 26 or 27-year-old who like can clearly obviously do stuff, but could also get better? Like, that does exist. That is a real age.
It's hard to have this dialogue because there is an element of the fan base, and I'm not saying this to be like a jerk or be condescending. They just want the Pacers to go out there and have Furphy throw alley-oops to James Wiseman. And that's what they want all season. And play Jarris Walker 38 minutes a night. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they want for next year, and just completely punt. And of course, like, when you have Pascal Siakam and Aaron Nesmith and guys like that in your roster, you can't go to them and be like, hey, guess what, guys? It's a gap year. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how. Sure, the Pacers aren't going to go all in and go into the tax or something and do something crazy to compensate for losing Myles Turner, because they know that this isn't going to be a title team next year deep down. So you have to approach it that way. But like, there's a middle ground there, and some fans, I think, just want them to go all the way young and tank. Like, guys, worst case scenario with what they have right now. Worst case scenario, this would be like a 38 to 40 win team, I think, in the East, especially.
I think
that's just not enough to tank. No. That's been the tanking for the Indiana Pacers franchise, at least in my history around the team. So the last 20 years has never been. The Dunleavy-Murphy teams weren't bad enough to tank, and that was bad basketball.
It happened once, and they were already kind of good that year, and they still won 35 games. Like, it just happened the year before.
It's very hard for them.
Yeah,
very hard for them to do that. So I think you have to approach the conversation of, like signing Jay or trading for Jay Huff, and then getting a third point guard. Like, some people are like, "Whoa, what are they doing? Why would you get a veteran or anything like that?" And it's like, guys, like, you still have to field a roster. You still have to go out there and play competitive basketball. And that's what the Pacers are going to try to do next year. And that's what they should do. That's what they owe it to the guys that just strapped the team on their back to get them within 48 minutes of an NBA championship this past year.
You know how you help Jarris Walker and Johnny Furphy and all these guys get better? You have a guy who can actually set them up, right? Like, if they're playing with a joke of a point guard, it's going to be harder for them to get better. I don't know. Maybe they think Cam Jones can be the third point guard. If I were running things there, which I should never, ever do. I would also be looking at a veteran point guard of some variety. I don't know exactly what kind of player, but like a table setting passing type makes the most sense to me. Also, I talked about gap year already, and I mostly focused on like the point you just said, where it's like they're probably too good, especially because the East stinks. Let me add another layer to this. Aaron Nesmith is extension eligible right now, today. After this season, Pascal Siakam is extension eligible. Like, they want to play well. Not only do they want to play, like, they have wallet reasons to go play well. They don't want to just be like, yeah, I'll go home and chill out. Like, yeah, it's great if we win 30 games. That's not good for them. Siakam said it 2 years ago. He's like, yeah, if we play well and we win, we get paid. And he was right. Everybody got paid, including Myles, by a different team. Like, no, they're not just going to roll over and die. It's not the Pacers ethos, and it's not what their team is built for. Obviously, they have different considerations, given that their ceiling has collapsed for one season, but they can't. Like, they literally can't tank. They're too good. The gap year stuff is just like such a touchy thing. I agree they need a point guard. I don't know what they're going to do at center. They have a lot of balls in the air that make sense. I kind of feel like they still need to bring in somebody better than who they have as their options at the moment, but I guess I understand this rotating cast of characters, but their resources are going to be the same next year that they are right now. So I
will say this. I feel better about, and I don't think this is going on a limb, I feel better about what they have in the point guard rotation right now, if they just stood pat, than what they would have had if you asked me a week ago about center. You know what I mean? I think they absolutely had to add a center. And if they don't add a point guard, if they don't add a veteran, then I'm kind of like, okay, I guess that's okay. But center, I think they absolutely needed to add somebody, and they did.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Unless you have any other prevailing thoughts, I will let you be freed, because we started 15 minutes late because Tony East has bad internet and it's raining, and I'm afraid it's going to get worse.
Interesting on Nesmith with being extension eligible, because he just played on the biggest bargain deal in the NBA for the last couple of years.
Yes.
So you know what I mean? I would be thinking to myself, man, this is it for me. I want to get the payday that, I should have had the last couple of years.
Right. It's what you want him to roll over and be like, it's okay. Like, dude, his stock's like never going to be, I don't know. You can't, it's impossible. It is possible. Like, I get that in theory, it's like, okay, if Pascal Siakam's foot is like slightly hurting him, you shut him down for 4 games. Like, okay, I get why you'd think about that, but it's like, it's just not, it doesn't make sense to me. But also, like, what does make sense this season? It's hard to answer.
And it does go back to the whole, like, well, they can't win a title next year. So what's
I hate
the point?
That, though.
The ring culture stuff, guys, like, if your only joy for the season is, can we win the championship or not, then you're just going to be miserable like all the time. Yeah. Like, if the Pacers avoided the play-in and got like the 6th seed, that'd be great. Like, let's get a first round matchup against, I don't know, like a improving Orlando team, and maybe the plucky Pacers could win a first round. You know what I mean? Like, that would be wonderful.
I would sign up for that right now. In April. Oh, I don't want to go to the warm Florida air in April. Dang it. Oh, shoot. I guess I have to go. I just think it's no way to consume sports that way, just because the title is out the window, to just kind of throw everything out. It's just, I always found that to be kind of depressing. And look, final disclaimer, if you're still here and you're like mad about what we've said on the show, I love Pacers fans. This is a great fan base. It was amazing in Game 7 to see all the gold and to hear Pacers fans in a road atmosphere in a Game 7. That's never happened before since I've been around the team. Yeah. Since I've been around them, that's never happened before. And it sucks that they've gone through everything that they've gone through. I thought, the fan base really showed out, and I think it changed how they're viewed in the city, what this run was. But yeah, it sucks that this is kind of what we're doing. Instead of basking in the glow of what was an amazing season, it just kind of immediately flipped to this. And it's too bad. The Pacers deserve better, and the fans deserve better than having to kind of dive into this right away. I sat next to an OKC-based photographer, and at every game in the OKC series when I was in Oklahoma, and before Game 7, he's like, "You cover the Pacers, right?" I was like, "Yes." He goes, "There's a lot of yellow." I was like, "Yes, it is." There are a lot awesome. Here. Like, it was noticeable to people who are even at Thunder games all the time. So good for the Pacers. Turns out I agree with you that title or bust should not be the mentality of every season, which is why all 82 games are fun. And Myles Turner was good in a lot of those 82 games and should not be reduced to his 7 worst games of the last season. Whatever. I digress. I'm over talking about that. Derek, thank you very much for the time and letting me opine on the same things you'd like to opine about people whining or saying things that seem a little ludicrous. Where can people find you and your platforms saying these things?
So the little at Schultz975 you can see on there on X Twitter. IBJ every other week have a new column. A lot of times it's Pacers, but also, Colts, IU, Purdue, anything Indianapolis-wise. In the summer months, we try to have some fun with it. We had John Nolan, the new-ish, I should say, Fever radio play-by-play voice, really talented guy, Syracuse guy. Just did a profile on him not that long ago. So we mix in some fun stuff kind of in the offseason when it comes to that. And then Jake Query and I, who does middays, and I know, Tony, you go on his show a lot on the Fan. We still have our once-a-week Dog and Pony show, Query and Schultz, that like 12 people listen to, but they're the most dedicated, awesome 12 people in Indianapolis. QueryandSchultz.com, Tuesday nights at 7:30 if you want to check that out.
Every Thursday, me and Query, and I come in and he's talking about like Reese Cups and how they were better in the 90s. And then he says, Tony Easton's here now to talk. I'm like, what happened? How did this happen? He's the best.
I will never be able to explain. I love Jake. He's a great guy. Wow, what a great radio host. But I don't know, man. I don't know. But I'm filling in Thursday. So if you're on the docket, it's you and me Thursday. All right.
Even better. I'll be up bright and early in 10,000 degree Las Vegas. So I look forward to not complaining about the heat when I'm out there. Everybody give Derek and his many, many places you can consume his content a follow. We'll be back tomorrow here talking about something, either a fun interview with someone who knows, let's say, one of the new Pacers draftees very well, or new updates on free agency if they sign a player or make a move or do any sort of thing. Because the moratorium is over, stuff can happen. Actually, probably we'll be talking about Kevin Pritchard's presser tomorrow because he is, in fact, talking on Tuesday. Monday, holy cow, this 3-day week. Enjoy throwing me off. Thank you all so much for listening. See you very soon.